right, welcome back, everyone. I am so thrilled you're here for another explainer today. We are jumping straight into a profound philosophical puzzle right off the bat, and it's one that might completely reframe how you think about personal growth and, well, helping other people. We're going to explore a framework of ancient wisdom that can literally take your everyday, mundane struggles, like grinding away studying for an exam or just trying to kick a bad habit, and cast them into totally new, incredibly empowering light. Let's dive right in.
So, I want to kick things off with a question that honestly sounds a bit backward at first. Can focusing entirely on yourself actually be the most selfless thing you do? I mean, usually we think of selflessness as giving away all our time and energy to others, right? And selfishness is hoarding all of that for ourselves. But what if the ultimate path of true compassion actually requires an intense, almost obsessive level of self improvement? Hold on to that thought because we're going to unpack exactly how that actually works.
To figure this out, we're pulling straight from a genuinely fascinating text called The Silent Buddha by Ryuho Okawa. And what's really cool about this source is what it's trying to do. It aims to decode the quiet, unspoken teachings of spiritual practice. It makes the case that the real key to grasping profound wisdom isn't just found in reading words on a page, but in the actual daily mechanics of how you practice and train your mind. And today, we're going to unravel the absolute core of that philosophy. Specifically, we are zeroing in on Chapter 2, the Four Great Vows, or Shiku Seigon. These are the fundamental, ultimate pledges you make when aspiring to the highest enlightenment. So, what are these overarching pledges? Well, here they are. First, save all sentient beings. Second, eradicate all earthly desires. Third, master all Buddhist teachings. And fourth, attain supreme enlightenment. The text points out that these four pledges act as what it calls overarching vows. Basically, they're the massive, unshakable pillars meant to support every single other tiny goal you could possibly have in your life. So let's break them down one by one to see how they actually function in the real world. Let's look at the first vow and just take a second to appreciate the sheer scale of this. Sentient beings are boundless. I vow to save them. The book notes that while sentient beings technically means all living things, it's primarily focused on humans here, and the scale is just staggering. The author uses the global population as an example, saying even if there are 5.5 billion, 8 billion, or 10 billion people on Earth, the pledge is to guide every single one of them to the shores of enlightenment. It's this incredibly beautiful, impossibly massive promise. Basically, this first vow is all about pure, boundless altruism, or Rita. It's the absolute ultimate expression of selflessness. It's a vow of pure compassion that essentially says, I am going to work to uplift absolutely everyone, no exceptions. It's an entirely outward-facing, totally selfless mission. But then we hit the second vow, Bonno Mujin Seigendan. Earthly desires are inexhaustible, I vow to eradicate them. And this is where the wisdom gets super practical and, frankly, very relatable. The author explains that these earthly desires, these worldly passions, they pop up constantly, every single day. The text gives a great example. Say you're perfectly calm, totally focused, and then a really attractive person walks by. Your eyes wander, and boom, you lose your focus. That exact moment of distraction is when you are supposed to silently recite this vow so you can cut off that worldly desire and immediately recenter your mind. Okay. Moving on to the third vow, Hamen Muryo Seigangaku. Buddhist teachings are countless, I vow to master them. This means vowing to learn absolutely everything there is to know about the truth. And again, the source gives us a brilliant everyday example. Imagine you just get a terrible score on the test. You're crushed. You feel like completely giving up on studying altogether. Well, this is the precise moment you should invoke this third vow. It reminds you that the path of learning is infinite, and you just have to push through that temporary frustration to keep growing. And finally, the fourth vow, Buddhu Mujo Seiganjo. Supreme enlightenment is unattainable. I vow to achieve it. True perfection can feel entirely out of reach, right? Like a flower blooming on a peak you can't even climb. But you vow to get there anyway. The practical application? Think about when you see someone who is just incredibly talented, someone who speaks brilliantly or studies flawlessly, and you suddenly feel utterly inadequate. You think, I could never be that good, I'm just going to give up. That is exactly when you use this fourth vow to ground yourself and renew your commitment to your own ultimate potential. Okay, hold up. Time out for a second. Did you catch what just happened? We started with this incredibly grand, totally selfless mission to save the entire world. But what about those other three vows? Eradicating my desires, mastering teachings for myself, achieving my own enlightenment. Aren't vows 2, 3, and 4 entirely about me? There's a pretty glaring contradiction staring us in the face here. Vow 1 is pure altruism, Rija, working for others. But vows 2, 3, and 4, they look suspiciously like self-benefit, or Riji, working on yourself. If you are supposed to be practicing this path of universal love and boundless compassion, why does the vast majority of your core mission suddenly look like an intense, hyper-focused self-improvement program?
The source text actually calls this out perfectly. It's the paradox of the bodhisattva. Think about it. Does it really make sense that an enlightened being, totally dedicated to saving the world, would spend 75% of their core vows acting seemingly selfishly, focusing entirely inward on their own mind, their own learning, and their own enlightenment? And here is the massive aha moment of the whole text. The author states, when we analyze these 4 vows closely, we understand they are built on a double structure, or in Japanese, a niju kozo. The text reveals that these aren't just some random list of spiritual promises. There is a hidden, highly logical architecture sitting right beneath these ancient vows that completely bridges the gap between the self and others. Let's actually unlock this double structure using the logic from the text. First off, you simply cannot pull someone else out of the mud of suffering if you are still stuck in it yourself, right? Eradicating your own desires isn't just for your benefit. It's so you can figure out the exact mechanics of how to help others extinguish the flames of their suffering. Same goes for mastering teachings. It's not about hoarding knowledge so you can feel smart. It's about acquiring the necessary tools so you can effectively teach and guide others out of their own ignorance. Literally, every single inward action has an outward purpose. Which leads us perfectly into this incredibly beautiful, unifying phrase from the text: seeking enlightenment above, saving sentient beings below. What the source makes crystal clear is that self-benefit and altruism, they are actually the exact same thing, just looking in different directions. You cannot possibly save the boundless sentient beings of vow 1 without the intense, gritty self-perfection of vows 2, 3, and 4. Elevating yourself isn't selfish. It is the required preparation for elevating the world. So how does this actually play out in your normal day-to-day life? Well, the text makes a really helpful distinction between overarching vows and individual vows. Individual vows are your personal everyday goals: passing a certification exam, securing that promotion at work, or maybe just learning a new language. But the big argument here is that the 4 great vows should be the universal foundation beneath all of those individual goals. You don't just study to get a good grade for yourself. You study as part of your overarching vow to master knowledge so you can eventually use it to help others. So the big takeaway here is this 3-step cycle of true selflessness. Step 1, radically improve yourself by cutting out your bad habits and desires. Step 2, attain profound wisdom by learning relentlessly. Step 3, use that refined self and that deep, hard-earned knowledge to uplift everyone around you. Realizing this empowers us to see that true self-improvement is never actually selfish. It is the absolute non-negotiable foundation for being of service to the rest of the world. I want to wrap up today's explainer with a question that I really hope sticks with you. Directly inspired by the text, who are you elevating yourself to save today? The next time you sit down to study when you're tired, or hit the gym, or resist a bad habit, remember this double structure. You aren't just doing it for you. You're actively building the strength, the wisdom, and the enlightenment required to pull someone else up. Keep focusing, keep learning, and I will catch you in the next explainer.